Hello and welcome to Model Aviation Live. I'm your host, Jay Smith, Executive Editor of Model Aviation Magazine. And I want to share that we're really excited that we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of Model Aviation in its current form. You may have seen me on AMA Air where I talked about that, but we did get our office copies. So here is the 50th anniversary issue. This is July of 2025. Obviously, we had a magazine, Model Aviation Magazine, going back to 1936, and then we were later an American Aircraft Modeler. But in July of 1975, we became a standalone magazine in the format that you know today. So for the last 50 years, it's been largely the same. Obviously, differences in page count and whatnot. And it's really interesting to note that we actually have a writer who wrote in that issue 50 years ago. They wrote an article called Short Seamew about an airplane and it had plans. And that is Dick Perry, and he's currently our Control Line Navy Carrier columnist. So I featured him on I Am the AMA here on the back page, but it's really interesting. He's the only writer that is currently writing for us that wrote for us in that first issue in July of 1975. So we're really excited to celebrate 50 years of the magazine. And when you get the magazine, if you get the print, if you have digital, it's already out. And if you get print, the cover stock is a bit thicker. So hopefully you'll notice that. And obviously, we have this new 50th anniversary logo, and you probably can't tell that well, but in the blue, that's all the covers. So there's thumbnails of all the covers of Model Aviation for 50 years. So if you look, when you get your print copy or if you have your digital copy and you look closely at the blue background, it's made up of rows and rows of Model Aviation magazine. Another interesting thing that I'd like to say about the magazine, and this is not patting myself on the back, but it's interesting things that you learn when you research the history of the magazine. And so people started throwing out questions like who took the most cover photos or who's been the editor the longest. And it turned out my name came up in both those cases. So I've actually taken 24 cover photos in the last 50 years of the magazine. Obviously, I haven't worked for the magazine for 50 years, but when we did a little research, it turns out I've taken the most at 24. I'm also the longest serving editor, continuously serving editor in the history of the magazine. I'm actually at 17 years. In fact, I'm just over a week away from my 17-year anniversary. So it seems like forever ago when I moved to Muncie, Indiana from Florida. I have to tell you, people still sometimes think I'm crazy when they ask me where I'm from and I say Florida, and they say, why would you leave Florida to come to Indiana? And it's like, because of AMA. You've been practically a lifelong member of AMA. I think I started flying when I was 7. Most of you know I did cars and boats and rockets and all that because my father opened a hobby shop that's been open now for 41 years. But anyway, I'm really excited. I'm excited to get any feedback from people that have already seen the digital edition or when you get the print edition. We really hope that you enjoy. We did include an article in the 50th anniversary edition. It's an article that was in the issue of July of 1975. So, and it has a plan, and the plan was the size small enough that we could put the whole plan in the magazine. So that's kind of neat. Here it is here. There's the plan. And it's called the Dart 2. And this, it's a Delta Dart built. We obviously have another plane, free flight Delta Dart. And this is called the Dart 2. It was designed by Frank Ealing. And it was seen in the July 1975 issue of Model Aviation. Here it is. So we were kind of excited to share one article. Now, as you know, or most may know, you can go to our library. If you want to look at the 1975 issue in its entirety, you can go to our library on modelaviation.com and see that. In fact, you can see all kinds of issues from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. So if that interests you to see more, but we have that one article in there for you. So please give me some feedback if you get a chance to take a look at the magazine, like I said, either digitally or in print. And we hope that you enjoy our efforts to celebrate this milestone. Today, I'm excited to have Mark Freeland from Retro RC on the show. He has been on the show before, but it's been quite a while. So I'd like to welcome Mark to the show. Hi, Mark.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm good. Have you seen the digital edition of the July issue, or are you waiting for print?
I'm waiting for print. I like to take it to the bathroom with me and sit and read it. Yeah, I don't do digital magazines like many people don't.
Nothing wrong with that. I understand that we look at screens a lot. So getting a break from screens, I totally understand that. Clearly, you can see bookshelves, at least two bookshelves in the background, one behind me and one kind of beside me. I've got about 600 books in my home office.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the print magazine. We just got that in the office on Wednesday. I think those subscribers will get it in the mail around, I think, about roughly a week from now. Print subscribers will have it. So I'm definitely excited for you to see it. Before we jump into all the
I really,
things,
I really like what you've done on the front cover. By the way, that's really
oh,
cool.
thank you very much. Yeah, it was something I had been planning for a handful of months. I thought it would be really neat to show all of the covers, and we're really happy how it came together. And then the 50th anniversary logo was designed by Matt Ruddick. He did a great job on that. So, yeah, very exciting. Well, before we jump into all the things we have to talk about, I recently did a worth a closer look about a new product that you have. So you have one right there. If you could show that product, and many
Sure.
people have probably read the article. Tell us a little bit about why you designed that, and how popular it's been for you.
Well, I do a lot of Science Olympiad workshops with the kids here in Michigan, and one of the things that I find that they struggle to cut their own balsa strips. Most of them have been trying to use the sort of $16 plastic one from Master Airscrew, and yeah, it works, but it's got a lot of backlash in it. It's hard to set it up to the same width every time, which for things like the tower bills, it's pretty critical that they get an accurate cut and they can reproduce it. So I came up with the idea of something that's easier to hold, fits in your hand much better, uh, and you can preset it by changing different spacers between the blade and the block of wood, so that it's very reproducible. Every time you set it up, it does exactly the same thing. And I give them a little lesson how to use it. The blade is actually set so it doesn't go all of the way to the base, which means you can do it on your dining room table without cutting the table. But also, if you flip the wood over after you do the first score and run it down again, you get a strip that's much straighter that has less tendency to warp by cutting it from both sides of the sheet of wood. So anyway, it's been very popular. It was very nice of Jay to put it in the worth a closer look. And I guess I've probably sold somewhere in about 80 or 90 of them in total so far. So they're pretty popular, and the kids find them real easy to use. So
Well,
that's a new cheap product that I came up with, and I usually try and do stuff either that I need myself or I see a need because somebody else is struggling with the tools that are available.
when you sent it to me, I took it over to the museum and took it in the restoration shop. And Michael Smith, the museum director, and I started cutting wood with it. And obviously, we both really enjoyed it. So, if you look at the pictures included in Worth Closer Look, that's actually Michael Smith's hands. So I could take the photos
Hmm.
of the product. So yeah, it is a great product. It does exactly what you say. And I'm a little bit proud to say that between Michael and I, we gave a little bit of feedback to make the product potentially even better. So that was really neat to
Yeah,
collaborate, just a little bit and give a suggestion.
I always listen to my customers and my evaluators' suggestions, and we're practical, and their suggestions are worthwhile. I definitely include them. Uh, the suggestion that Jay came up with was that he's concerned that the screw holes might wear out too quickly. So I've actually lengthened the screws that are used by about an eighth of an inch, so they'll tolerate many more insertions before the hole gets too sloppy for the screws. There are sheet metal screws that are self-tapping into the wood blocks. One other thing about it is I don't think there's any other stripper on the market that will consistently strip a 1/64th thick strip of wood. which is incredibly useful if you're doing laminated tips or something like that for a small indoor free flight model. So anyway, it'll do down to 1/64th. The spacers that come with it will allow you to change the strip width from 1/64th of an inch up to a quarter of an inch in 1/64th steps. And if anybody has a special request, I could also create a 1/20th, which is a very unusual size, but a lot of vintage models use 1/20th strips. So that's another option that if somebody requests it, I'll be happy to do for them.
Excellent.
So
Well, Mark, the first time I met you, your company was Retro RC. Obviously, it's still Retro RC, but now, or in more recent times, you added another company, which is Campbell's Custom Kits, started by Lee Campbell. And unfortunately, we have some sad news that Lee has passed away. For those that don't know, he did live in Anderson for a time, and then most recently, he lived in Muncie. I know obviously, Mark, you were very close with him, working with him, building his models, his kits. So, could you share a little insight into Lee, a little bit about you taking over his company to make sure that his models are available for years and years to come? And, whatever you'd like to share for those that weren't aware that he's recently passed.
sure, be happy to. Lee actually passed on the 7th of June this year. Um, He had been living in a assisted living nursing home for about the last 2 years in Muncie, as Jay had alluded. And I had the pleasure of last visiting him the Sunday before he passed. I had been down in Muncie, and we'll get to that in a bit, visiting. And I went and saw him on the Sunday afternoon after lunch and spent a couple of hours with him and had a really nice conversation. Um, One of the things I asked him was what was his favorite design that he ever produced? Because a lot of the kits that I'm making were his own designs as opposed to copies of other people's designs. And he said the Super 30 and the Super Coupe, uh, which is a larger version of the Super 30, were his all time favorites that he had produced. And they certainly sell well. I'm actually out of stock of the Super Coupe at the moment. Anyway, give you the story how I ended up purchasing Lee's company. Back in the days when we had the Toledo Trade Show, one day Lee Campbell came up to my booth and introduced himself to me. Now, I knew who Lee Campbell was. I didn't know who this person standing in front of me was because I had never seen a picture of him. But anyway, I had been oogling his kits ever since I moved to this country back in 1986. The local hobby store, Joe's Hobbies, in Wyoming Avenue in Dearborn, carried his red box kits. And anytime you went in a hobby store and you saw a red box, you knew it was one of Lee's kits. His kits were famous for being extremely high quality wood and well put together with everything that you needed. Um, Basically, he hand cut all of the parts for the kits on a bandsaw, and he did that for 37 years, I believe he said. And over that period of time, he manufactured something like 70 or 80,000 kits. That's a huge number. Um, I'm sure I'll never get anything close to that number in my lifetime. But he came and he asked me if I could laser cut some fuselages for the straight up glider, which anybody who knows what the straight up glider looks like, it has a long fuselage. It's about 18 inches long. That's 1/8 of an inch thick spruce, and it tapers from 1/8 by a quarter to 1/8 by 1/8 over a 1 foot long section. And it's a straight line. Sounds easy enough, but if you try cutting that in a bandsaw, you'll find out how difficult it is. Lee's kits were known for the quality of his bandsaw work, and by this time he had found that he couldn't cut so straight anymore, and he was looking for a way to improve the quality back to what it had previously been. So I said, well, I'd be happy to do it for you. And I laser cut 200 fuselages for him for $1 a piece, which he was absolutely thrilled about because that included the wood. He had been using basswood because he couldn't get his hands on spruce. And that started our friendship. Anyway, in 2015, Lee was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and he decided at that point in time it was time to uh, relieve himself of the bit of the business and do what he could to enjoy what life he had left. And he came and he offered me his company uh, on the condition that I would keep making the kits that he'd been making as best as I could, and that I would keep using his logo and his name. Um, I sat down and we talked for an afternoon. It was a long lunch actually, and I agreed to pay him what he had asked for, and that's when the transfer started. And I learned a lot from A, trying to produce his kits, and B, from the questions I had to ask him to try and reproduce the kits. But basically, I have been converting the kits that he had been producing with the bandsaw to being laser cut kits. I haven't done them all yet, and it'll probably be a while yet before I do get them all. Um, the amount of time that I have left to build and design new kits is kind of limited by how much time I spend manufacturing kits for people that order them from me. But anyway, I've been making these kits since 2015. So he saw me continue his legacy for 10 years, and it'll keep going. Uh, the kits that you see him flying here are in the pictures that are up on the screen. The green glider that he's holding is a Jesse James, another one of his original designs. The launching aeroplane is a rubber-powered coupe. The aeroplane with the orange wingtips that he's working on at the workbench is a Zeke. And then the black aeroplane with the white wings that he's launching is a Jabberwock. I think that was one of his favorite ones to fly because it flew so well. Anyway, Lee will be sadly missed, and it's kind of difficult to talk about him because it's so fresh in my mind. Anyway, Lee Campbell, a great guy, and those who didn't know him, you should wish that you did know him. Also, full of jokes. Everybody knows him for his jokes. Every time you saw him, you get 16 different new jokes that you had never heard before. There were probably a lot of them were repeats, but he came up with his own original jokes as well. Anyway, so that's I guess all I'd like to say about Lee. What a
Well,
wonderful
I
guy.
really appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious, and it may vary, but since you've been selling his kits since 2015, is there a best seller of his kits, or does it just vary from month to month, year to year?
It varies from month to month, year to year. Um, I sell a lot of his glider kits. I don't just sell them to Joe Public. Radical RC is an RC company, Dave Thatcher's company. He buys Lee Campbell's kits from me, and I sell him a bunch of the gliders. But two-thirds of what his company buys from me are the gliders. The one glider that I sell the most of myself is it's probably the Vartanian catapult launch glider, which is a little 12-inch wingspan glider. And every year at the Free Flight Nationals, they have a contest that's called Beat the Vartanian. And basically, it's called that because the 12-inch Vartanian is such a great little glider that the larger 18-inch gliders struggle to keep up with it, believe it or not. So anyway, beat the Vartanian. You can fly any catapult launch glider you like, and you'll be doing real well if you beat the Vartanian. So that's a very popular one. Um, of the rubber-powered airplanes, uh, Jabberwock and Gollywog are probably the two that I sell most of. Uh, they were designed by Wally Simmers. I don't know if many of you will know who Wally Simmers was, but he was actually the founder of K&S Metals, uh, which is still going strong. He founded that company with a partner back in the mid 40s. I think it was just after World War II. And it's kind of remarkable for a small company like that to still be going strong at this time. So that's probably the most popular of the rubber powered models. Then, uh, well, this year in gas powered models, the Half A Monks, which is a design that I just came out with just after Christmas last year, has been the hottest seller. partially because it's going to be used this year in the Nationals, both as a half a NOS gas model and also as a e-NOS gas model. Two separate competitions, same model, same one design. Um, I was actually talked into producing that kit by Bob Souter, who's a great guy. The prototype that you see on the bottom right hand side is actually Bob Souter's first build from my first cut kit, which he has been flying ever since. And the reason he saw the airplane and wanted it, he came across this photo over here on the internet, which is of a guy called Bruce Hanna out in California, preparing his monks for a flight. And he thought it was such a swell looking airplane, and the reports were that it flew so well, he thought he'd like to try one. The wooden parts that you see up here, those are the laser cut parts for the short kit. So I actually offer a short kit with those parts and a full kit, which has everything you need to basically build a complete airframe, including the fuselage and pylon, etc. Um, and I've been so busy making it that I haven't actually finished my own prototype. It's built, but it's not covered yet. So that's something I need to get done before the Nationals this year. Anyway, I've had probably 30 people buy this kit from me, and I've had a lot of good reports on how well it flies. Like most of them fly right off the building board. So obviously, it's a fairly easy model to trim as well. It's 44-inch wingspan. Uh, Uses a Hot 049 or a small electric, something in the order of a 1808 or an 1806, with a fairly high kV, at least 2800 kV. And it should fly really well on that because that's probably got 1 3/4 to 2 times the power of a Hot 049. So anyway, that's the monks. Um, and you'll see on my website that I'm sold out of them, but as of tonight, there should be another dozen kits available. I keep selling out of them.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Keeps me from building my own one, however.
Yeah.
So,
We were also going to talk about a plane that I saw when I was over at Phil's in his shop, who lives here in Muncie, and it's called the Ritzy 20, and I really liked it. He has it in a suitcase, which reminded me of the first time I met Mark Freeland because he showed up with two planes in one suitcase. Um, so here it is. Here's the Ritzy 20, and you recharge it with a rechargeable pack. So tell us a little bit, Mark, about this aircraft and how it came about and just some details.
okay. Well, it all starts with me landing uh, a what was the airplane? A slow worm 432, 60 feet up in the top of a tree in Muncie during the Free Flight Nationals, not last year, but the year before. I had a GPS tracker on it, and I followed the GPS to. And this may sound like a long-winded story, but it's pretty short. Followed the GPS tracker to where it said the airplane was, and I couldn't see it anywhere. Then I looked back at the tracker again, and it said altitude 60 feet or 20 meters, 60 feet roughly. Looked up, and there's the airplane right above my head on top of a tree. Anyway, Phil Calvert, who Jay has just mentioned, knows a guy who's a tree trimmer in the Muncie vicinity who has previously climbed or used his bucket to retrieve some people's aeroplanes from trees. Anyway, Phil gave him a call. He came over and decided he couldn't get his bucket anywhere near the tree, so he put his leg irons on. He climbed 60 feet up this tree, lowered my airplane down on a rope, and I was able to fly it again half an hour later. Anyway, he wouldn't take any compensation for his efforts, as he had turned it down with many other people who tried to give him some money as well. He said, "Well, why don't you do something for the local kids?" So last year during the Free Flight Nationals, we passed the hat around to ask anybody uh, who had been helped out by the tree trimmer to retrieve their aircraft if they'd like to donate something that we could do something for local kids with. And we raised $625 during the banquet. and decided straight from that we would design a kit, manufacture a reasonable sized batch of them that we can give away to local kids, and hopefully run some classes and teach them how to build them and how to fly them. Anyway, Dave Lindley from the National Free Flight Society said that the National Free Flight Society would like to join in the effort, and agreed to double whatever we had raised. So we'd have a little bit more money to do a lot more for the local kids. Anyway, we had a meeting with MA's educational department, and I had some ideas of what might work for an aeroplane. And the next time I came down to Muncie, I came with a prototype of what is now called the Ritzy that you see in the box, um, and they liked it. So I built a bunch of Ritzy kits, and the educational department was tasked with finding a suitable group of kids that we could uh, use it use it with, and teach them how to build model airplanes and fly. One of the criterion was that it actually had to be something that had some significant building in it, but still could be built and flown on the same day. So it's kind of a simple design. The fuselage is a carbon rod. It's actually the top of a fishing rod, the top section of a carbon fiber fishing rod. The power system is a little electric motor and a 5 farad supercapacitor. Same power system that was used for one of the Science Olympiad events a couple of years back. And it'll fly in dead air for about 45 seconds to a minute. Uh, some people have reported a minute and 15 seconds in dead air. And variability, of course, is due to the large variability in the capacitance of capacitors. But anyway, it's just charged up to 3 volts with a little handheld battery box. As soon as you unplug it, the motor starts, and well, you can see the kids here flying it. This was about 4:30 on the Saturday afternoon. The class that built these, there's like 12 kids working on them, uh, started at 11 in the morning. So from 11 to 4:30 in the afternoon, they built their airplanes, and now they're flying them in their gymnasium. This was the Anderson CAP group. We've also decided that during the Free Flight Nationals this year, we're going to have a one design contest for kids. No fancy rules. You get 3 flights any time of day, doesn't matter what time of the day, and your best of the 3 flights is your score. And we're hoping that some of these kids from the Anderson CAP will come along, and a few other people that we know have built the airplane, or people who've had their grandchildren build the airplane. Anyway, it seems to have been a great success. I've actually sold quite a number of them to adult modelers who like it because it's a great small field flying thing. And one of the biggest problems for free flight these days is finding a field that's big enough to allow you to, let your planes rip. So anyway, this is the Ritzy. Kit costs $45, and it comes with 2 onboard power systems and 1 charger. The airfoil is a Ritz airfoil, named after a gentleman called Ritz, as it happens, that's been used probably since the late 30s. It's only covered on one side. It is curved or undercambered. The undercamber is created by the 7 ribs that are built into it. The leading and trailing edges are sheet wood, and it's a relatively easy airplane to build, and it seems to be easy to trim as well. Anything else I could tell you about it, Jay?
Well, some AMA employees built it with the help of Phil, who, again, this is his suitcase and his airplane, but he assisted some AMA employees just recently in building this model as well. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, well, there were actually two of the younger members of the educational department, and it was actually them that ran the workshop at the local CAP in Anderson, which was about 3 weeks ago, the weekend before Lee Campbell passed. That's why I'd been in Muncie that weekend, because I was helping run the workshop.
So here's the video of what we just mentioned, doing some test flying at Phil's. So that's where they're flying is used to train dogs. That's why you see like tubes or tunnels.
And pictures of dogs.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's a really neat airplane. When I saw Phil's, um, I haven't seen it fly yet, but when I saw Phil's, I just thought it was a really cool design. And even Phil himself has some really cool stories, like that cool suitcase he used to put his airplane in. That he used that and had that from the days when he flew as a private pilot, and he has amazing stories. He flew Mother Teresa one time. He was the pilot for Mother Teresa. He also knew the I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. Maybe you can help me here, Mark. The air racer who was sponsored by Gilmore Red Lion, and he had a
Roscoe Turner.
yes, Roscoe Turner, and Roscoe had a cub, a lion cub that was given to him, and he would fly. Roscoe would fly with the lion cub in the airplane, and Roscoe lived in Indianapolis, and he worked at the Indianapolis airport. He was teaching World War II pilots how to fly. He had a flight school, and so Phil would see him, and talk to him after his air racing days when he worked at the Indianapolis airport. And a few years ago, his house went up for sale in Indianapolis. And they talked about all these famous aviators that had been there. Howard Hughes had swam in his pool in the backyard, and just some amazing history. But so Phil was pretty good friends with him, and like I said, flew Mother Teresa and flew from the U.S. to the U.K. and wherever he needed to do for his job as a private pilot. So he always has great stories. Great builder. He is very involved at this point in free flight. I mean, he's done other types of aero modeling, but really, he's been working closely with Bob Seifleet, who is local to us as well, and they've been working a lot together. And so he's really put a lot of focus in free flight.
I'll just add a little bit about the video that you just saw that Jay showed. The young lady Gwen, this was and her partner, whose name escapes me at this moment. Do you know his name, Jay?
Ashton, I believe,
Ashton.
is
Yeah,
yeah.
Ashton. Thank you. Gwen and Ashton had never built a model airplane in their lives before, so they were kind of like the guinea pigs to see kind of total beginner build this and be successful. And they both managed to build theirs. They were overseen by Phil, and they did it in Phil's workshop over a couple of evenings at 2 hours at a time. But they both finished their airplanes, thoroughly enjoyed the process, and you can see how well they flew on their first attempt to fly them. So anyway, Gwen and Ashton were primarily responsible for running the class that we had with the CAP, even though they'd only ever built one airplane themselves. But they had some expert help. I was there as the designer of the airplane. Dave Lindley was there for the National Free Flight Society. He's the president. And of course, Phil Calvert and Bob Seifleet were there. And Dave Seacrest came along to help. So we actually had quite a few helpers and observers to keep the kids going straight. But they all enjoyed it, and um, I'm hoping they flew them more than the once in their gymnasium, and I hope they'll come out to the nationals. Anyway, two great young engineers now, model airplane engineers. Now that they've built the first airplane, I hope they'll try and build another free flight airplane. A
I
lot of
wish
people.
I was going to say I wish I could have attended that event. I would have loved to have been part of that, but I was actually out of town on vacation, and finally got to see AC/DC in concert and check that off my bucket list. So I got to see the last U.S. show, possibly the last ever, but certainly the last of the tour. But had I not been out of town, I would have definitely been there.
Well, we can always do another workshop for you, Jay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think you get to go to that concert again, ever.
yeah. Probably not again ever.
So
So
you probably made the
definitely.
right choice there. Um, so anyway, a lot of people say, well, why free flight? Why don't you just go and buy a radio control aeroplane that's been imported from China? Basically, my perspective and many other people's perspective is building is as much pleasure as flying. You get a lot of satisfaction from seeing something that you've built actually work. You learn a lot from solving the problems you need to solve whenever you're building an airplane, and you learn an awful lot more about how to trim an airplane to make it fly right than you do from a radio control airplane. Radio control airplane, you throw it up in the air, and if it doesn't fly right, you just twiddle the sticks until it does fly right. That sounds oversimplified, but it's too easy for some people, and the free flight is much more of a challenge. So that's one of the reasons why I've gone more towards free flight in my older years than I used to. Like you've heard my company is called Retro RC and Campbell's Custom Kits. When I started, it was 100% radio control, and now we're down to about 20% radio control, 80% free flight business. So free flight's still alive and kicking.
Here's your
That's a
website.
page from my website, yeah, and you can see the second row picture is the Monk's kit, which as of tonight will be available for sale again.
So act now. Well, they're still available, right?
Yeah, there's only going to be 12 of them finished tonight, and that's probably the last batch that I'll be able to make before the Nationals. In
Well,
fact, I've got the last two from the previous batch are sold and are going out in a package. As soon as we're done here, I have to go to the post office. So there will be 12 more as of tonight.
so you mentioned obviously the free flight Nats that you'll be attending. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about that. What events will you be participating in, and how long will you be with us here in Muncie?
Okay. Well, the free flight Nats occur every year. It runs for a whole week. Usually starts on Monday, ends on Friday, and it's co-run by the National Free Flight Society and AMA. Um, It's usually, not always, but usually the last week in July. So this year it is the last week in July. Events start Monday morning at 8 o'clock and finish Friday afternoon, usually about 4:30 before the last prize giving. There are many, many, many different classes. Gliders, there's everything from hand launch gliders, catapult launch gliders, tip launch gliders, uh, tow line gliders, high start gliders, A1 gliders. There's a bunch of classes for gliders. Likewise for rubber powered, there's everything from small scale to Goodyear races to coops, which are the most graceful things you've ever seen. If you've never seen one flying, I would thoroughly recommend you go look. If you get a bunch of them going up together, which you usually do, they just look like a swarm of gnats flying up in the air, but they're huge gnats and they're going up to maybe 1,500 feet. Very, very graceful. Then there's the gas events, which are noisy, of course. Um, they don't have the same sort of noise restrictions on free flight gas models because the engine runs are so short that you would have on radio control models at a radio control flight site where you're going to be flying continuously for 5 or 10 minutes. Most of the powered free flight events, you get something no more than about a 10-second motor run. Uh, for the high powered finals, you might get a 3 second motor run. So 3 seconds after you launch the airplane, the motor has to be stopped. That doesn't really give you very much time. So you can imagine they're usually grossly overpowered so that they can accelerate very quickly and climb to, well, uh, the world champion ones probably are climbing up to maybe 1,000 feet, which is staggering to watch. Um, Electric free flight has become very popular over the last 10 years or so. And we tend to use the same sort of motors that quadricopters use, except we we overprop them um, so that we are overloading them compared with how they'd be used in a drone. Um, so something that might be using a 4-inch prop on a drone, we might be putting a 7 to an 8-inch prop on it. And instead of drawing 10 or 12 amps from a you know 4 5 cell battery pack, we'll probably be drawing 28 amps from a 3 cell battery pack. So we push them to their limits. Um, if we ran for more than the 10-second motor run that we run, we'd probably burn them out in 15 seconds. Anyway, free flight electric is the area that I'm most interested in. I first started doing competition free flight using E36s, uh, and that's another story which Jay's responsible for,
Huh.
if you remember. Um, and since then, I've been flying E36 regularly, Electric A, Electric B, which are a larger class of airplane that would have been traditionally flown with an A or a B size gas motor. Um, And if you haven't ever seen a free flight model or a free flight contest, it's well worthwhile coming out. The people that are there, they're very friendly. Uh, Ask as many questions as you like. People are very happy to help you because we're afraid that our side of the hobby is maybe diminishing, and we'd like to get as many new people enthused and participating as we possibly can. Anyway, the Nationals runs the last Monday to last Friday of July and held at AMA's headquarters. And we'd love to see more of you there than we have in the past.
And
Uh,
obviously, we just focused on free flight, but there'll be RC and control line and all other aspects. Obviously, the indoor free flight has already happened. I actually participated in indoor free flight a handful of years ago when it was in Champaign, the one year they had it in Champaign. And I actually won a first place plaque from the Nats. So,
pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. I joke that it was the first time in my modeling career that I was able to launch my airplane, then go get my camera and photograph it.
Yeah, usually you have to get somebody else to take your pictures for you, don't you?
Yeah, usually, or I have someone else fly a plane and I'll take the pictures. Yeah, but that was a lot of fun, and a lot of innovation comes out of competition, and even though people are competing against one another, I mean, they're always willing to lend a hand or, provide some knowledge or, so I've always liked that, or even in some cases offered a backup airplane if someone loses their plane or is damaged so they can continue to participate. It's really quite a fellowship.
It is. Well, actually, I touched on something about Jay being responsible for me getting into electric free flight contests. I'll tell you the story in case Jay doesn't remember. It was at the Toledo Trade Show one year. I had recently launched an aeroplane which I called the Wee Devil, which was like a 29-inch wingspan free flight job that was intended for O10s and O20s and also for electric. And Jay said, "Well, why don't you come to the Free Flight Nationals?" I'd never been to the Free Flight Nationals before this, by the way, and uh, and fly your Wee Devil. And I thought, well, that's kind of silly. It's not going to be competitive. The only class that was available at that time that it would have been close for was E36, which allows you to have a 36-inch wingspan model. So I decided then and there to redesign it and make it a larger airplane to 36-inch wingspan and come and fly it in the Nats. Well, the prototype was finished 2 weeks before the Nats, and I went test flying it with a radio receiver and servo on it so that I could steer it and fly it somewhere. I didn't have a big flying site like Muncie to test fly it in. So anyway, I ended up landing it on top of a tree. That sounds like a familiar story. Um, about 50 feet up, and no way of getting it down. And there it stayed. Actually, it stayed there until it fell in the fall and was retrieved by a dog. But anyway, that gave me 2 weeks to build another one and take it to the Nats, which I did. And I also had a friend, Andy Tamash. He built one as well. We both flew ours at the Nats. And during the last event, which was all up, the last one down wins, uh, my one took first place. And during the regular contest, Andy took first with his one. So it was a very successful aeroplane for its time. That was back in 2012, if I remember rightly. I still have it on my website, still sell them, and nice little airplane. So that's how I got into flying at the Free Flight Nats. Was Jay talked me into it during the Toledo Trade Show in April that year.
And you've been to just about everyone since, haven't you?
I've missed two. Uh, I missed one because I had abdominal surgery, and I missed one because I was in hospital with COVID. So those are the only two I've missed since. Great camaraderie, great group of people. To me, it's my vacation, my big
Yeah.
vacation of the year.
One of the years I wrote the article about the whole Nats, covering all aspects of the Nats, and
Yep.
I called it Summer Camp for Big Kids.
Well, it kind of is. Like, how else can you go and get a whole week undisturbed flying in model airplanes without the lady of your life, or well, actually, for some people, it might be the man of their life, complaining about them spending all that time playing with toys? So, yeah, it's great camaraderie, a lot of fun, and we all have a good time. And I'm sure the other radio control nats, the glider nats, there are a whole bunch of different nats throughout the whole summer. But the free flight nats is the big one as far as I'm concerned.
As we're talking about the Nats, it reminded me of something I wanted to share about the magazine. It starts with the July issue, but it'll be something that will be ongoing. And so, one of the popular, and I showed this earlier, the I Am the AMA, I said we covered Dick Perry since he had written for the first issue back in July of 75. So, here's I Am the AMA at the back. But a discussion came about that maybe it'd be nice to also showcase AMA employees, because obviously when you call AMA or email AMA or you come to events, you may know some employees, you may not know any employees. So that way you get to know the employees a little better, put a face with the name. So we actually now have staff spotlight, which Kyle Jarris, our education director, is the first one. So I was myself and Brandon, who is one of the graphic designers, we were working on the questions of what we would ask staff. And one of the questions that I came up with that is going to be in every one is something that might interest anybody who comes to AMA for any event. And that is, we're often asked for recommendations on where to eat. People will say, I don't, no offense to any kind of chain restaurant, but they'll say, I don't want to go eat at whatever restaurant. I want to, have something that's, only in Muncie or only in Indiana, or, something that everyone here likes. So I said, why don't we put that in the questions and ask staff what their favorite place to eat is in the area. And
Yep.
then when people come, they have ideas on where they might want to eat. And as I'm saying this, since you're obviously here and we're chatting, I let Mark Freeland know about a good Thai restaurant, Thai food called Thai Smile. And I think you've gone there probably several times since you and I went there. That's just one example. And it's right off, it's on Tillotson, right off of McGalliard. McGalliard's where most of the hotels are. So that's I think that'll be a kind of a neat idea. At first the employees are like, why are you asking me where we like to eat? And because we want to let people know that visit and aren't familiar with the area, so I don't want
Yeah.
to give away all the questions, but that's one of them. And I'm not in any rush to have a staff spotlight because I get a page in every issue, and I've been
Mhm.
doing this for 17 years, and I have this show. So, I would think most people know me or know a little bit about me, that I was in the military or whatnot. But I will share that my restaurant of choice would be Kamak Station, and that is in the town of Kamak, which
Mhm.
is right next to Muncie. So it's basically further up McGalliard, past the hotels, and it used to be a gas station, and then they turned it into a deli, and then now it's this big. They've expanded it, and they have ice cream and Sundays and like root beer and Coke floats, and they have burgers and all that kind of stuff. Great food. They have gas, like old gas pumps and gas globes, and they have a quarter scale um, Stearman, an RC quarter scale Stearman hanging
Mhm.
from the roof, from the ceiling. And they also play Andy Griffith on a TV in there. And they used to have a police car out front that had Andy Griffith in it, but I don't know where that's gone. They also have old tractors, and they actually have a car show every so often. So actually, interestingly, the last time I was there a few weeks ago was on a Friday, and just happened to be in the area and said, "Let's go to Kamak Station," and they're having an old car show, and there was 30 cars, or roughly 30
Mhm.
cars in the parking lot. So that whenever I get around to doing it, that'll be my favorite place. And I have to thank, unfortunately, he's passed away, but interestingly, when I came to AMA 17 years ago, nobody told me about Kamak Station. I found out about it at my very first Nats 17 years ago, and I
Mhm.
found out from Alan Brickhouse, who was a control line flyer and designer, just a great person, a great hobbyist. And he asked me, probably within the first or second day he was there, have I ever been to Kamak Station? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I never heard of it. So him and I went to lunch at
Mhm.
Kamak Station during the Nats, and I've been going, on a few times a year ever since then. So
And taking other people there.
yeah, and I've taken other people there.
Yeah,
So
you took me there. It's
yeah,
best ice cream in town.
yeah, and I've taken people from Horizon Hobby there, and other people. I just had two people visited from Free Sky, and I was going to take them there, but they were there. They came on Monday, and it was closed on Monday, so they're going to have to come back. So instead, we went to Mancino's Pizza, and then they also wanted to try Pizza King because Pizza King is a pizza restaurant that started in Muncie, and strangely, there's like five of them in Muncie. I mean, just in
Mhm.
Muncie, I think there's five Pizza Kings. But anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but so I wanted to, just show people who are watching that we'll have another page dedicated to spotlighting staff and asking them various questions about what they do at AMA, how long they've been at AMA, and obviously, as I just shared, their favorite place to eat. So hopefully that gives people other ideas. If they might want to try something different or eat somewhere that's, you know, local. And I do the same thing when I travel, either personal or for work. I try to eat at places that I can't find in Muncie.
Yeah,
You're probably the same way, right, Mark?
totally the same way. And like places I found in Muncie, it's from asking people like Jay, where should I eat? And yeah, Thai Smile was a great find, and I think I must have introduced about 20 different people to it since Jay introduced me to it. And we've held some free flight meetings at Thai Smile. They were closed for a fair while during COVID, but they reopened. Um and it was the last year they opened for Saturday nights as well. They had not been able to staff up for Saturday nights, but they're now open Saturday nights. Great place to eat.
Yeah. So,
I'll be going there next month. I'll be close.
so they're open Monday through Friday for lunch and dinner, and then
Yeah.
Saturday. Right now, it's just dinner on Saturday. Um, and they're actually on DoorDash too. So if for some reason, if you use DoorDash and for some reason you didn't want to actually go there and you wanted it delivered to AMA or you wanted it delivered to your hotel, obviously this isn't sponsored content. We're not. I'm just sharing that was one of the first places I took Mark, and he still likes it. I still like it. I've eaten there in the last week. I did DoorDash it. I didn't have time to go, but so something to look forward to. We're almost out of time. We've got a few more minutes. Is there anything else, Mark, that you want to talk about in regards to free flight or anything going on in the free flight community or anything about your company or just to kind of to wind down with the last few minutes that we have?
Well, I'd like to suggest something that if you haven't already got it in your list of questions, that you ask people about their modeling experience in your question to staff members. Um, this class that we just ran for the CAP is not the first class I've run in Muncie. Back in 2013, I believe it was. Um, Jay again had asked me if I would put together some sort of a design and run a afternoon workshop for staff at AMA during the Nats. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I think you had 11 or 12 of the clerical staff came along, and they all built a flip wing catapult launch glider, and they were to be seen outside well after going home time, still flying their gliders. And I think there was yourself, and there were no other males. There were all ladies that came, and they all colored their gliders in with Sharpies, and we had some wonderful creative designs. that really livened them up. So anyway, none of those people, apart from Jay, as far as I was aware, had ever built a model airplane before, and they didn't realize how much fun it was.
Absolutely. Mine, the one I built when you had that, is on my desk. Not my desk here at home, but my desk at work. So I
Yeah,
still have mine ready to go out. And what was that? Was it called the Camp Racer? Am I thinking correctly, or was it a different?
it was. Yeah, it was a camp racer.
Yes,
That's
yes.
it. It was this. The style of the airplane was from an RC airplane that I already had, which was called the Camp E Racer. So I converted it to a glider and made it a flip wing glider. So the wings folded back along the fuselage, and whenever it got to the top of its climb, the wings would flip out, and uh, it was kind of a lot of fun. Not the best glider in terms of glide performance, but a lot of fun and great for small field work. So yeah, quite often a design is stimulated by a need for a specific event. The Camp E Racer, the electric version of that, was also designed for a 1 day class at a local makerspace. They wanted somebody to come along and do an RC airplane that could be built and flown the same day. So that was another created design for a specific need, and it turned into be a very very popular selling item. Still have them in stock, and they don't sell as many anymore. Basically, because the sacrificial aircraft that you got the radio gear and motor from was any of the bind and flies from Park Zone, which are uh, you can get destroyed ones now. They're not so you can't buy the original parts as spare parts anymore. But anyway, that was designed for another 1 day workshop.
And you also designed a free flight model that we could fit in the magazine, the full size plan. I think it was a De Havilland Vampire. Is that what it was?
Venom, de Havilland Venom.
Oh, Venom. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was another. It was a catapult launch glider, and it was designed that so it could be built from one sheet of 1/16 wood, and like at least like you said, it can be printed in the pages of one sort of page of the magazine. Although some of the parts were overlapping each other, um, a lot of those have been sold too. That was a great success. Um, it took second place. The original prototype took second place in the local indoor competition the very first day it was out when I was actually just basically trimming it. Um, it has a 1 degree decollage built into it, so that it's kind of easier for a beginner to trim, but it does mean it's kind of loopy. You've got to launch it at a high steep bank angle of about 45 degrees, so it'll spiral upwards in a loop. Otherwise, it'll just loop over your head and hit you in the back of the legs. But it's a great little airplane, a lot of fun.
It's a good point to mention. Sometimes I'll be asked, why doesn't the magazine put full size plans in the magazine? And I've addressed this a few times. I've mentioned it in my editorial, but since we're talking about having your plan in the magazine that fit, it wasn't oversized. But the reason why is that when I got a quote, because obviously our magazine has a very large print run and is mailed out, to a great number of people. So to put an oversized, folded plan in the magazine, it was going to be between $9,000 and $12,000 extra to put the plan in. And the challenge I have with that is, so do I pick RC? Do I pick control line? Do I pick free flight? And then within those groups, you have scale or civilian or, all different. So I was concerned that if we spent, say, $12,000, how many people would actually build it? Would it be worth spending $12,000? Because
Mhm.
obviously, we try to be very mindful how we spend the money that comes in through memberships and whatnot. So instead of doing that, when I took over as the editor 15 and a half years ago, I made every plan that is in the magazine free. It didn't used to be like that. So you can download any plan that's ever been in the magazine for free, either tiled or the full plan. You can take it to Kinko's and have them print it for 15 and a half years since I took over, any plan that's ever been, you can do that. Now, of course, if you want our plan service to print it and mail it to you, we can't do that for free. But if you don't want to tile print it or deal with taking it somewhere, you can contact the plan service or order online. But so that was kind of the compromise I made, was
Hmm.
to give out all of our plans for free and hopefully get people to build. And then also it was my idea to make the October issue the build issue, again promoting building and making sure that doesn't become a lost art, in our hobby or just in general, because it's important to know how to build things or to work with your hands or work with tools. So just I thought this was a good opportunity to reiterate, because I saw a comment recently on, I believe it was YouTube, about why don't you put full size plans in the magazine. So I thought this would be a good reason to say why. If it was less expensive, maybe in the $3,000 range, $4,000 range, it might be a different conversation, because maybe we could do one RC 1 month and then a free flight and then a control line. But at 12,000 each or thereabouts, it
Hmm.
makes it more difficult. So but I do appreciate that you made specifically that aircraft that you did for us, the Venom, de Havilland Venom. You specifically made it so it would fit in the magazine.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it was a great idea to request me to do it. So thank you for requesting it. And yeah, the print it yourself plans, that definitely is a great compromise, great way to go. Aero Modeler, the British magazine, they used to put a folded plan in every issue. Uh, Back in the day, whenever I was starting modeling, when I was in my teenage years. But now they're doing exactly the same. They will print some plans that are across the center pages, uh, but they always make the full plan available for download to subscribers. So, good idea.
Throughout our conversation, we've had some people leaving comments saying hello or checking in, and we just got a comment from a viewer that's in Brazil, Eduardo, saying hello from Brazil. So that's really neat.
Hi from Brazil. Hi to Brazil. Actually, you just mentioned something. I've first package that I've ever sent to Argentina is going out today.
Ah,
So we send stuff all over the world. In actual fact, even South Korea has. I've sent a couple of packages to South Korea. So, but Argentina had never sent one until today. So great to know that we're being watched other parts of the world. Super.
yeah. This weekend we have NIFI going on. Some may know that I ran that for 10 years as the contest director. We raised thousands and thousands of dollars for the Animal Rescue Fund here in Muncie, a no-kill animal shelter. At least I want to say probably at least $35,000, $40,000. We also raised money. We sadly lost a firefighter. He was fighting a fire, and we helped raise some money for his children to go to college. So that event still happens. I don't run it at this point. Roger Seward, who used to help me run the event, now runs it. He also works for AMA now as of last year. He works in maintenance. So that's going on this weekend. Unfortunately, it's going to be quite hot. 89 degrees tomorrow and 91 degrees on Sunday. But that's kind of exciting because there's been probably two or three articles about that event. So anyone that's in the area or planning to visit Muncie, that'll be going on this weekend. Obviously, we have a whole calendar online of everything that takes place, be it a rocketry event or we've had dog competition on site with just all kinds of interesting things, all types of flying. So if you're going to visit, check out the calendar and see what's available. We just had multi GP here for drone racing last weekend, and a few days before they had 250 pilots. They had 4 race sites outside and 1 inside, and they had
Hmm.
250 pilots. So always worth, if you're going to visit Muncie, check and see what's going on event wise. You can find that on the main AMA website. Obviously, anything magazine related is at modelaviation.com. We also need to remind when the next show is going to be. And I have it on my other computer right here, so I didn't forget. It's on July 18th, Friday, July 18th. Will
Hmm.
be the next episode. Mark, I appreciate you being on and all the things we chatted about today. I appreciate you, kind of giving your personal story of your friendship with Lee and the company. That was great. We're also going to put something in the magazine that you wrote. Obviously, with the lead time of the magazine, that'll be a little bit further out
Mhm.
before people see that. Obviously, you've been on the program before. I always enjoy seeing you at events. Look forward to seeing you at the Nats, and I hope you do great at the Nats this year.
Well, thank you for the invite, Jay. It's been fun chatting with you, and look forward to seeing you at the end of July. So thanks again.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing everyone again next month. Thank you.
Thank you.